Just a quick note. There's an update on our website this morning. Benito Baeza posted this just a short while ago. FBI investigating shooting of Idaho rancher. So that investigation now has moved beyond state police handling that. That was in Adams County and involving a couple of Adams County sheriff's deputies. The FBI is now involved with that. In this segment of the program, we talked about that a bit yesterday, but in this segment of the program, I wanted to reference a couple of points about illegal immigration. And I mentioned it while I was talking about the college students earlier. Normally when we have a tease in radio, we say, hey, coming up. Well, in this case, this is a stealth tease. That's why I mentioned immigration earlier, and then it's to get me into this next segment of the program. But first, I'd like to remind you, coming up next week on our show, Wednesday, between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, as we do every Wednesday, we'll be joined by one of the medical professionals from Tripp Family Medicine right here in Twin Falls, located on Fillmore Street, directly across from the main post office. There you go. Sometimes you're trying to put a couple of syllables into one big sack, and it doesn't always work that way. The doctor was here the other day. We had a fascinating discussion about concussions, and in fact, I mentioned we left some people on the telephone. So we may revive that discussion, I'm sure, at some point in the next couple of months during the course of the program. We call it Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. We hope you can join us next Wednesday morning. And the doctor likes to say, life's too short not to feel good. 8:35, Bill Colley with you this morning. It's 28. Want to thank you for joining us. If you'd like to reach our program as well, my telephone number is 736-0300, 736-0300. Also, my email address is bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. That's bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. Mentioning the subject of illegal aliens, nobody believed that this was going to be one of the dominant issues of the current presidential campaign. I say that because I think that we got into this campaign and thought that the big anti-immigration movement had waned. Way back in 2007, you may remember there was an attempted amnesty. The Bush administration was involved. You had people like Trent Lott, who was supposedly a conservative Republican in the U.S. Senate. He was involved. And they were incensed that there was an uprising among conservative Americans who simply said no. But over the last several years, the issue has been, because of the economy, I think, taking center stage, illegal immigration became somewhat of a secondary issue to a great many Americans. It would not have been revived but for an offhand comment Donald Trump made when he was announcing that he was running for president. Remember, he said he thought he was going to be the jobs candidate. He didn't realize what a chord he was striking with the public when he started talking about illegal immigration, which has now become front and center. Even the Washington Examiner, very conservative publication, the editors today are saying that they hope it goes away so we can talk about other issues. And the Examiner says that a great many candidates, they are at least for some sort of partial amnesty, even conservative Republicans. And the Examiner has joined that crowd that says it would be impossible to move all of these people out of the United States. As one of my old bosses said at my previous radio station, well, tell you what, one at a time then. This comes from the Daily Signal. Illegal immigrant deported 3 times, charged with running over a police officer. This happened in Texas. Eduardo Gonzalez Rio is being held in the Dallas County Jail, according to the Dallas Morning News. He was escorted out of a nightclub early Monday morning. He got into his SUV, ramped up over a curb, and ran the vehicle into Senior Corporal Ed Lujan twice, critically injuring the officer, who's now clinging to life, as they say in television. Clinging to life. One of those old cliches. And then he actually tried to run over a second police officer. Deported 3 times. What's the learning curve with this fellow? Or does he just figure laws don't apply to him? 8:37, Bill Colley with you. Then I came across this. Mark Stein, who some of you know, very gifted guy, very gifted writer, author, several books, columnist, a frequent guest on Fox News Channel, frequent guest on Rush Limbaugh's show as a guest host. He has this about Donald Trump, and he says he likes Ike. And I went through this entire column this morning. I was just transfixed by it. I read it while I was eating my breakfast this morning, and I got near the end. And he says, people always go on about how they want specifics, a little bit of wonkery with decimal points in the numbers, references to arcane bills and obscure acronyms. But after 4 debates, he says, I'd like a little more generality, a little bit of the big picture stuff. And he says, it is striking that even in a conservative debate, mass, remorseless, illegal immigration is discussed almost entirely from the illegals' point of view. As Kasich advises, think of the families, think of the children. Their families, their children. The families of those who they've supplanted, that would be working Americans, are of less consequence. The argument made by Bush and Kasich against enforcing the immigration laws is an appeal, he says, to moral preening. This is, quote, not who we are, unquote. But using mass immigration to destroy the lives of your own citizens, well, that's exactly who we are. And this all boils down to this. Bush and Kasich are chasing Wall Street money. There is a story today that I happened to read before I got on air, and it says it's out of the Washington Post saying Republicans are even thinking about trying to convince Mitt Romney to come back and run because the big money is not following any of the current candidates. The big money was going to back either Kasich or Bush, but Kasich or Bush aren't doing very well in the polls. The big money wants that cheap labor. The big money doesn't care if you lose your job. The big money on Wall Street simply is thinking about itself and not as Americans. And Bush and Kasich, they're just the toadies working for big money. 20 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Hey, a couple of other things, too. We've got a guest coming up. I believe she pronounces the name. It's Catherine Kemp Guylay, and she's joining us. She's written a book, really, about outdoor sports and, outdoors in Idaho during winter. She'll spend a few minutes with us in the next hour of the program. And something I think is related to illegal immigration is also the refugee story, because, again, it's going to be people competing with you for resources and jobs. Brigitte Gabriel has a mass email today. And I'm a subscriber to her emails, and it says thousands are signing our open letter to the U.S. Congress with clear message: no Syrian refugees to the U.S. If you go, just do a quick search on the computer for Act for America, ACT, Act for America. You'll likely find more details about all of this if you'd like to sign on. She's a real human dynamo in her activities, and I'll tell you what. We're lucky to have her in this country. She is, of course, a legal immigrant who came here after her family, Christians, were chased out of Lebanon by the Islamic hordes hell-bent on just wiping out Christianity in that part of the world. 844, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And it's 30, so we're up 2 degrees, 3 degrees actually, since we started the program 40 minutes ago, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I do want to remind you, we've been telling people about the weather lately. Now, during the summer, I was really trying to promote the good folks at Tent Lady, because at Tent Lady, they can cut down on that intense heat you sometimes get through the windows. You know this when you get into the car on a day with a lot of sunshine. Even if it's not a summer day, it gets really hot in there, that convection through the glass. And we were telling you put window tints in, that'll cut down on that. That'll also take some of the burden off your air conditioning unit. It'll save you money. It'll pay for your for your effort. But on the other hand, you're thinking in winter, well, all right, I can wait until the hot weather returns. Aha, but that sun is still working as a bleaching agent on the seats of your automobile. It's working on your drapes at home, on your carpet, on your furniture. I've seen the effects of this. I lived in an apartment years ago, and when I moved in, I realized somebody had a dresser drawer sitting in one side of the bedroom. The carpet was pink, but when I looked at this rectangular spot on the floor along the wall, it was purple. That's just how much bleaching had gone on from the effects of the sunshine. Window tints will cut down on that. You can get a free estimate. Just give them a telephone call at Tint Lady, 736-8469, or go online, tintladyidaho.com. And remember, they're located at 1887 Highland Avenue East in Twin Falls, actually not very far away from our studios. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday by appointment only, and closed on Sundays. And remember, don't squint, get tint. Sharing a couple of thoughts with you about illegal immigration earlier. I have a coworker. I've been telling her I'm looking to. When I first moved here, I moved into a tiny apartment because, I had a house still in Delaware, and I had someone living there, and she was not ready yet to move out, and that's pretty much coming to an end. And I've been talking about moving into a smaller community because I grew up in a small town. My hometown. We had a little village with 1,700 people. And then we had the entire town, which is much larger, but maybe 3,000 people total. And I like that type of atmosphere better than an urban type of atmosphere. So I've been looking around at little towns. So one of my coworkers grew up in Jerome, and I suggested I might go looking at a place in Jerome, and she said, "You don't want to be there." She said, "I'm telling you, I grew up there, and it makes me cry when I see what it's become." And the newspaper has been doing a series on this, telling you how great it is that the community has been overrun by, just as they call it, immigrants. But you see, the liberals, they make no distinction between illegal and illegal. Everybody's just great and grand. It's good that they're here, and they're all going to be Democrats, and that'll be wonderful. And perhaps we can be helpful to them, and maybe they'll, in their effort to eventually learn English, if they ever bother, maybe they'll start buying our newspaper. Maybe they should print the newspaper in Spanish. Maybe that's the only thing that can save them. But they never delve into how these people got here. And I remember the first installment they did about, isn't this great, isn't this great, isn't this great for Jerome? They talked to a woman who commented that she came here in the dark of night, thinking she was coming to a big city, and then woke up in the morning and realized she was in Jerome, Idaho. Well, she came here in the dark of night. Why? You see, these are questions liberals, especially those in media, don't want to answer. They don't want us bringing these questions up because they know what the answers are. And they figure you're so gold-dang dumb that all they have to do is say, "Isn't it wonderful? Consuela came here, and it was dark at night, and she got up and thought this is an ugly town." Probably prettier than wherever she came from. My guess is still much prettier. But I was warned you don't want to live there because it's practically turning into a third world type of community here in the good old USA. You think Americans are angry about this subject? It is the dominant issue right now in the race for President of the United States. 848, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. We're at 28. Eric Trump is a son of candidate Donald Trump, and he was making an appearance last night on the Kelley File on Fox News Channel and says that his father does really believe that we could move these people out of this country very, very quickly.
He wants to put America first, right? There's 100 million people in this country that are out of work. Yet people are coming over the border unchecked every single day, and it's just not right to the Americans who were born here, right? I mean, who have lived here. And you also have a legal system. You have a system where you sign up to come into the country legally.
But even if you have somebody like Jeb Bush, who may agree with that, or Marco Rubio in principle, they say, when it comes to deporting 11.5 million illegal immigrants, and your dad has said he wants to do it in 2 years, you're talking about 500,000 people a month. How is it going to be done? The one estimate was it's going to take between $400 billion and $500 billion to do it.
But the point isn't just deporting them. It's deporting them and letting them back in legally. And he's been so clear about that. And I know the liberal media wants to misconstrue it, but it's deporting them and letting them back legally. But they have to come into the country legally. And there has to be some checks and balances behind it. I mean, what kind of country are we if people can walk across the border and take jobs from people who have lived there their entire lives? I mean, it really hurts an economy.
No country ever has survived that has borders that are just completely open and allow people to roam back and forth. 10 minutes now away from 9 o'clock. We have a caller with us, and you're up next on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. What's your question or comment?
Well, I grew up in Jerome. I was born there, lived there till 1996. I had, two boys that lived there, and still I have children that still live there, daughter. And my boys will jokingly call Jerome Herome. Okay? And if you go down Main Street, when I was a kid, we used to drag Main. And it was full of typical drugstores, JCPenney, Idaho department store, the banks, First Security, of course, it's still there, Idaho, whatever that. And it was normal, Rice Chevrolet, whatever it was, King, and you drug Main because you were happy to be there. And I drive down Main Street now, and it's empty. Some of these Hispanic businesses are functioning, but it's just a sorry situation. And where you were born, you look at it and you go, you just have to shake your head and go, what can be done? And of course, you go out towards Walmart and you have industry out there, but the downtown is not what it used to be. And it does break your heart. And so See, this is the thing: language, borders, and culture. But you see, it isn't going to stay that way unless we, the people that are proactive, caring, proactive people, stand up and do something.
Here's a question for you. How many people in the newspaper management, how many newspaper managers or even reporters do you think live right around downtown Jerome?
Well, I know that Autumn Agar doesn't live there because I've had numerous conversations with her. And then there's another gentleman that he a young man who apparently grew up in Burley, or if I'm not mistaken, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And he's an LDS, but he's not, for some reason, it doesn't seem to be getting it through on the conservative side. That paper is a joke.
But they don't live amidst all of this. So they sit there telling us how great it is.
Twin, and they live amongst their white friends, I guess you might say.
In very nice neighborhoods on the north side of Twin Falls.
Yeah. Well, wherever it is, and the thing of it is, again, it's a situation that has to be dealt with. And when they say Donald Trump can't, when I hear a Hispanic authority or some pundit say, you can't export all these Mexicans, and I says, BS. Every county, you collect every Hispanic that's illegal in that county, in each county, and you process them.
Well,
that's
tell you what,
it's done.
We have a great big rail line running through downtown Twin Falls. Could be an excellent start. Thank you much for the telephone call, sir. And we have another caller with us. It's 853-29. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And you're on the air.
Oh, yeah, Bill, just a quick comment. If Hillary thinks that they can actually get rid of all the guns in America, I guarantee you they can get rid of all the illegals.
Yeah, that is a great point. Thank you very much. And you're up next, and you're on the air on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Somebody gave up. 736-0300. Let's be a Democrat. 736-0300. They didn't get instant gratification. You can also email me at bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com, bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com, last name spelled Colley. Did I finish giving the number out the second time? 736-0300. There you go. You're right. They keep saying, well, we can't do this. Speaking of guns, I've got to mention something about the gun confiscators in the next hour of the program. If you stick around, a rather tongue-in-cheek story today in the Washington Examiner about how they don't believe that that's an actual right that Americans have. Well, the writer is commenting on the New York Times, which is a lot, it's just a bigger version and liberal with liberal blinders on than what you have here on the local level. You're up next, and you're on the air on KLIX.
Hello?
Sure, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've had a business there in Jerome since 1984. And this whole problem in Jerome started about 1990 when the laws in California moved the dairies from California to Jerome County. And the tremendous demand for labor has what has brought in the immigrants in that area. Now, evidently, Jerome County just turns a blind eye to that and doesn't do a thing about it. But it really is not that big a problem to correct. It's primarily a matter of enforcement.
I've never had a chance to really talk to any of the local officials about this, but I do believe that since they play golf and they hang out with all the swank clubs with all of the people who own these businesses that are making a lot of money off of this cheap labor, that no one wants to say anything because they might offend their buddy over at the chamber or over at the country club. Do you think that that's possibly what's going on?
Oh, there's a lot of that. Certainly there is. Where does the big money come from in Jerome County? It all basically boils down to the dairies. That's what supports that entire area. That's what brought in the cheese plants. That is their primary source of income. And yeah, they don't want to get hot water with those folks. They want to kind of baby them. And if you need these folks, well, they're here. We're not going to do anything about it.
I wonder if the Democrats get their way and we go to a $15 an hour minimum wage if suddenly that will change the playing field, or if there will just be a larger underground economy that's taking place. Want to thank the caller for chiming in. We got about 2 minutes before we wrap up for this hour. One more hour still ahead, of course, of the program. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. And our next caller joins us on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And what's on your mind? It's that same guy again, you know? He must have a really poor calling plan. You know what? Your card has expired. 736-0300, 736-0300. It's 30, coming up on 8:57. And, of course, I've mentioned earlier we have a guest joining us in the next hour of the program. On a lighter note, she's going to join us about 9:20. She's written a book. She's focusing it on the area around Ketchum and Haley and Sun Valley, but talking a little bit about winter sports and just the beauty of Idaho, especially during the winter months. Now, some people out there don't think that winter is very beautiful. I happen to actually be among those, having grown up in a situation where I was constantly shoveling snow, although I made a lot of money doing it. When you're 12 years old and someone's giving you 50 cents per sidewalk, you think that that's big money. And when you're 12 years old, you can shovel a lot more sidewalks than, let's say, when you're 50 some odd years old. But my brother and I used to make all of our wintertime money that way, just going out and house after house after house after house after house. And we used to do this one great big corner house that had this enormous sidewalk because it was on two streets. We used to get $1 for doing that. But the two of us could do it so quickly, and unlike some of the other kids in the neighborhood, we just didn't push the shovel down the middle. We actually cleared the entire walkout, and then we would move on to the next house. But the fact that it snowed every day for about 6 months out of the year, we made quite a killing. 8:58. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Here in Idaho, the snow falls mainly in the mountains, right? So we don't have to worry about it in the high desert, and so I'm told. Till the first really big snowstorm. 30, we've got a break coming up. Fox News is immediately ahead, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.